Hello and welcome to the first video of the AM show. Today we are going to talk about why is Manipur burning.
Here we come! We are indigenous people! We gonna f*** you up!
On May 3, protests by tribal groups against the demand for the ST status by Metis community turned violent in several places across the state. Unfortunately, lives have been lost and properties have been damaged as a result of this violence. The violence erupted because of the conflict among three tribes: the Metis, which constitute a 41% population and are a Hindu community. On the other hand, there are Kuki and Naga tribes, which comprise of 40% population and are a Christian community. These community already had a SC status, because of which they got a preference in jobs and education. Now, it's important to note the demand for SC status by Metis community has been a long-standing issue in Manipur. The other two tribal groups have expressed their opposition to this demand, leading to protests which turned violent as 2 weeks ago. The High Court of Manipur asked the state government to include Metis community in the ST list. Because of this violence, the state government, in order to ensure the safety of their citizens and maintain law and order, imposed a curfew in 8 districts, and mobile internet services have been suspended throughout the state. Furthermore, the government has deployed army and paramilitary forces to contain the situation. The recent violence first occurred on April 27th, when a mob led by the Indigenous Tribal Leaders Forum (ITLF) burned down a newly constructed gym-cum sports facility, which was scheduled to be inaugurated by the Chief Minister the following day. The ITLF and other tribal groups were protesting against the proposed survey of reserved and protected forests and wetlands by the state government, as well as the demolition of 3 unauthorized churches. Although the security forces acted swiftly to contain the situation, things escalated on 3rd May when the All Tribal Students Union of Manipur organized a tribal solidarity march in the Torbang area of Churchandpur district to oppose this demand. The situation quickly turned violent, with protesters burning objects, which led to further acts of arson and violence. The conflict between the Metis and tribal communities in Manipur is part of a larger hill versus plains conflict that is prevalent in many northeastern states. The Metis community, which makes up to the majority in Manipur with around 41% of the population, while in tribal communities making up around 40% of the population, there are 34 recognized tribes in Manipur, broadly classified into Naga tribes and Kuki-Zomi tribes. While the Naga and Kuki tribes are included in the ST list, most of the Metis community people have OBC status, and some of them are listed as SCs. The Metis live in Imphal Valley, a small patch of the plain area in the state, while the tribals reside in the protected hill areas, which are exclusively reserved for them. However, Metis people are limited to only around 10% of the land in the state, as the rest of the state is classified as tribal areas, and non-tribal people are not allowed to purchase land in the notified hill areas. The hill area in Manipur, which makes up 90% of the total land in the state, are declared by the government under the provisions of Article 371C of the Constitution. The committee and authorities do not allow non-tribals to purchase land in the notified hill areas. The Metis community is demanding ST status, as they had this status before 1949 but lost it when the state merged with India in October 1949. When different communities in India were classified as SCs and STs under Article 341 and 342 of the Constitution, the Meitei community was not included in any of them, reportedly because they are caste Hindus. After the implementation of the Mandal Commission report, Meiteis were granted OBC status, which makes them eligible for reservation in government jobs and seats in educational institutions. In Manipur, the quota for ST is 31%. OBCs enjoy a reservation of 17% and the same is 2% for SCs. Apart from the SC status, Meiteis are also demanding a National Register of Citizens (NRC) in the state, alleging a large-scale illegal immigration in the state which is being opposed by the tribes. This conflict has resulted in protest and violence between the Meitei, and all of Manipur is burning. In the ongoing conflict between the Meitei and tribal communities in Manipur, the Naga and Kuki tribes have opposed the Meitei demand. However, according to various media sources, recent protests and violence have been attributed mainly to the Kuki tribes. While the entire state saw the tribal solidarity march, the Nagas areas witnessed peaceful demonstrations. Some organizations of the Naga community have distanced themselves from the ITLF, that is Indigenous Tribal Leaders Forum, which has been leading the protests. The Rongmei Naga Council Manipur has said that ITLF does not represent all indigenous tribes and its actions are against the wishes and integrity of these tribal communities. They have urged the people to abstain from the said rally, stating that it creates chaos and goes against the peace-loving people of the state. Now the tribal groups, including the Naga and Kuki tribes, are opposing the demand for this ST status by the Meiteis claiming that they have already had reservation as an OBC like other backward classes and that they don't require the benefits of the reservation. They argue that the Meitei community is already an advanced community wielding both political and administrative power, having a higher population than all the other tribes combined in Manipur. They occupy most positions of power, controlling major businesses and institutions and having a relatively higher social, educational and economic standing than other tribals. The All Tribal Students Union Manipur ATSUM has submitted a memorandum to Union Law Minister Kiren Rijiju stating that the Meitei community has done exceedingly well in the fields of technology, medical, engineering, sports and civil services under the UPSC, which is indicative of their advancement. However, the tribal groups allege that if the Meiteis become STs, they will grab all the jobs reserved for the STs, claiming that the education qualifications of Meiteis are generally better than Nagas and Kukis. The tribal groups further argue that the Meitei language is included in the 8th schedule of the Constitution and is a well-developed language with a script, unlike most other tribal languages. Therefore, the Meitei community is ineligible for protected status. They also claim that the Hindu Meiteis want to buy land from tribes in protected hill areas, which they do not want to happen. The tribal groups claim that originally the Meiteis were happy to be not classified as tribals due to the social divide between the people of valley and hills, and the plains people used to use derogatory words like house to refer to the tribals. They argue that the plain people, the Meiteis, were not including in this list because they have lost their primitive and distinctive features and therefore cannot be declassified as tribals. The tribal groups also point out that out of 60 MLAs, 40 are from Meitei community, which makes them the majority community in the Vidhan Sabha and which makes them dominating community in the state. While both Naga and Kuki tribes are opposing the Meitei demand for SC status, the Naga community has distanced itself from recent protests and violence. It is the Kuki tribes who are mainly behind the recent protests and violence. The tribal solidarity march that took place in the entire state and the violence that took place mainly in the Kuki areas while the march was peaceful in the Naga areas makes us think a lot that why are Kuki community people creating a lot of chaos for themselves and their own people. The Metis community denies that they are seeking SC status to grab these reserve jobs. According to them, without the status of the scheduled tribe, the Metis community will lose the status of an indigenous community. It is not about the reservation in jobs, educational institution or tax relief, but it is more about protecting the land, culture and identity of the people, which cannot be protected without SC status. The Metis community claim that their ancestral land, culture and identity are under a constant threat from illegal immigrants from Myanmar and outside the state, and therefore they need the protected status. The Metis community rejects the claim by ATSUM that they have lost their tribal nature, saying that they still follow ancient animist rituals, belong to the Mongoloid race, are geographically isolated, economically backward compared to the national average and are a microscopic minority. Therefore, they fulfill all the criteria for being classified as scheduled tribes. Regarding land, the Metis community says that while they are allowed to buy land in only 10% of the state, there are no restrictions on others, including these tribals, outsiders, from buying the land in the valley. Only tribals are allowed to buy land in the hill districts. So 90% of the land is reserved for the tribal communities. However, the Metis can purchase the land only in 10% of the state along with everyone else. According to them, this has resulted in a scarcity of land for them. In conclusion, the debate over the inclusion of the Metis community in the ST list in Manipur is complex. The tribal groups allege that Metis are seeking ST status just to grab these reserve jobs, while the Metis community are constantly denying this and claiming that this is about protecting their land, their culture, their identity. The Metis further state that the violent protests against the ST status demand are merely a facade, and the real motive behind the tribal protests is the survey of forest land and eviction of illegal immigrants from the protected areas. They argue that Manipur is experiencing a sudden surge in their population with a growth rate of 24.5% against the national average of 17.64%, which is a result of this illegal immigration. This has led to an abnormal surge and mushrooming of villages in the hill areas of Manipur, which they claim cannot be attributed to the natural birth. They allege that Kuki people are illegally immigrating people from Myanmar and occupying forest land in Manipur, and the local Kukis are supporting them. To address this issue, Metis demand the implementation of NRC, National Registrar of Citizens, in the state to identify illegal immigrants. They claim that illegal immigrants from Myanmar have been settling in Manipur since the early 1970s, but the movement have been intensified now, and this sudden population spike requires attention. The state government has identified 38 villages in the Churchandpur Khaupam protected forest area as illegal settlements have been happening over there and has launched an eviction drive that has led to these clashes. The government has also announced a survey for forest areas to identify these encroachments, which is continuously being opposed by these tribal groups, and these tribal communities, mostly Kuki group, claim that the eviction in the survey violate Article 371C of the Constitution, which confers some administrative autonomy to these tribal dominated hill areas of Manipur. Meanwhile, the Metis community is concerned about protecting their ancestral lands, their culture, their identity. They claim that without the status of scheduled tribe, they will lose the status of an indigenous community, which could eventually lead to their gradual marginalization in their ancestral land. In recent times, several allegations have been made regarding conflicts in Manipur, with one of them being the eviction of Hindu Mitis living in the Christian tribal areas. According to these Miti groups, after the violence in the Churchandpur district, several Mitis who had left their villages have not returned. Allegedly, several houses belonging to the Mitis were burnt by tribals and stones were pelted at them, which forced the Mitis to leave. Unverified videos have also emerged showing houses on fire, allegedly belonging to these Mitis. Hindu activists have claimed that the incident was not a tribal versus non-tribal conflict but was initiated by a Christian tribal to evict Mitis from Christian majority area. They allege that Christian tribals had pre-planned the incident and implemented it on the day the Vice President of India, Shri Jagdeep Dhankar, visited Manipur. The activists point out that the Tribal Churches Leaders Forum issued a statement supporting the Tribal Solidarity March in response to the call by ATSUM. The Tribal Churches Leaders Forum, TCLF, unanimously resolved to endorse the Solidarity March of ATSUM in a meeting held on May 1st. The Solidarity March, organized by ATSUM, is to collectively protect the social, political and religious interests of the tribal people of Manipur, said the statement. As a result of the incident, reportedly around Hindus, they fled their homes in the Kuki-dominated areas and took shelter nearby Indian Army and paramilitary camps. It is essential to note that the situation in Manipur is highly complicated and all the parties involved have different versions of events that have taken place. The Manipur government, under the leadership of Chief Minister Shri Biren Singh, has relaxed the curfew in the violence-hit Churchandpur district for 3 hours as of May 7th and deployed army drones and helicopters for surveillance. CM Singh has held an all-party meeting and video conferences with the paramilitary forces, with the communities and the senior government officials to take stock of the situation and make sure that all the communities are satisfied with whatever they can do. We are hoping that things become better in Manipur very soon. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it interesting, please subscribe to the channel and share it with all your friends so that they can become aware of what is happening in Manipur right now. Thank you.